Hello, this is Conan Soups, and in today's Lumion Legacy HTUC video, we're going to be talking about Plasmoth. Plasmoth is quite a niche and pretty interesting Lumion, so in today's video, we're going to be talking about how to use and counter Plasmoth. In order to do so, I'll be going over topics such as the counters and checks and teammates, in order for you to know how to team build around Plasmoth, as well as knowing the roles and sets in order to know how to use it in your battles. Today's video, we're going to be talking about how to use and counter Plasmoth. So the role that Plasmoth is going to be playing is pretty much dependent on its base stats and its ability. Of course, this Lumion is going to be known as the Thunderstorm setting Lumion or until a new one comes out, but as of right now, it's the best that we've got. And it actually has some pretty mediocre attacking stats and a pretty bad melee defense stat, so not only can you hit hard on any attacking stat, but you also have some pretty bad matchups on the melee side. You do have a decent HP stat of 86 however, and this pairs well with your range attack of 109, giving you some solid range bulk, although nothing too crazy. You have a pretty good energy stat of 93, allowing you to get up to some pretty good benchmarks without investment, and then your speed stat of 112 allows you to have the ability to outspeed the likes of Glaciadia and Nevermare by 1 point, and of course outspeeding some stuff like Joltooth, Amore, and Vesperatu. Plasmoth looks to be a pretty niche Lumion in its metagame matchups that it can try and use. There's really not a lot of metagame matchups where you actually have your defensive typing helping you out a little bit, so it's mainly going to be having the ability to weather setup as its role on many teams. So in order to compensate for its pretty bad defensive typing, I'd say, we're going to be running a mixed defensive set provided by Akil from my server. He cooked this one up, and honestly I probably couldn't do one better because this Lumion is so bad even with this set, but the ability is going to be Thunder Summon because it is the only Lumion of its kind to get it, so we're gonna use that niche. However, Charged Arc in the future and now is also pretty good, as you can potentially paralyze stuff like Glaciadia and Valkyrie that you can try and swap in on. Of course, you have Robust Clever as your personality here. It is the name of the set, and of course I wouldn't try and swap in on Lumions that has super effective hits on you. I would try and fish for the paralyze if you are using the SA on stuff that you either resist or you know you can tank. The very frail personality actually helps us out a little bit, so we don't have to decrease any other stats. And our moveset. Now, this moveset, it may seem a little bit weird, but I promise it's actually good. So Flash and Flee is a guarantee because you are a fast pivoter of sorts, so you can get the lead, you can try and swap out, swap in, fish for whatever they're trying to do for the opponent in terms of moves or setup. And Tricky Tactics here actually is pretty good because a lot of melee attackers which can hit you super effectively, they underspeed you, so using their melee attack stat against them can give you the ability to at least try and threaten them with damage, which makes up for its low melee attack. Power Surge is of course going to be your stab. You can run some type of bug coverage for Lashent, although I don't think it has any good ones. And Preemptive Strike here is for setting up and guaranteeing Thunderstorm while also knowing what item the opponent in front of you is going to be using. However, if it is a Spirit type, I wouldn't try that. Provoke is also another good option, so you can try and punish Lumions such as Gargoyle Defense that can try and set up hazards on you. So I'd use those three moves and then choose between Provoke or Preemptive Strike. Anyways, the item of choice is going to be the Health Amulet because you do not have consistent recovery. And as for the TPs, 200 HP and 80 melee defense allows you to take 3-hit KOs from the likes of Nevermare, Halvantic, Vesperatu, which admittedly is pretty decent for your melee defense stat. And then of course you're gonna have to get 8 energy for 255. If I do recall, this is enough to use 1 Tricky Tactic and 4 Flash and Fleas, and then for your speed tier of 56, this is allowing you to outspeed Nimble or Reptidon so you can Flash and Flee on them, and then you won't have to risk any further damage. And then of course the range defense is the leftovers, and you can tweak this set by sacrificing speed because Soul Burst Reptidon, as admittedly as something that you can take hits from, you do not want to go up against, so you can try and do that. However, I would just stick with the set as is. So let's get to the counters and checks and teammates for Plasmoth. So counters and checks for Plasmoth. First off, if you want to straight up counter Plasmoth, you have to use Ice types. Ice types are one of the best ways, if not the second best way, in order to stop Plasmoth from doing what it's trying to do. Himber, Barbadger, they're very good answers. They can just swap in on Plasmoth on whatever. And Chienza can't swap in except on the tricky tactics. Now, and for counters and checks that can help with Plasmoth teammates, that can also try to abuse the Thunderstorm. Now, Tyrex and Dokomori are probably the best ones I get for this job, as they are immune to electric, and Tyrex here with Terrifying can help cover the likes of Metatoad and Halvantic, and Dokomori here can cover Halvantic and Zulong. This isn't limited to just these two though, as you can use some other stuff like plant types. Soul Burst Florent, the Flychomp, can also deal with Joltooth no matter the set. If your Florent is like a V-Robust Florent, then you can do very well for that. And then Nevermare here can help deal with Metatoad. It necessarily doesn't like taking a Psycho Blast, but it can take a Thunder Strike pretty well, so I'd go for that. And Weather Setters can also be pretty good stops to this Lumion, as they can all replace its ability on the swap, giving you some ample time to get your weather up instead of them. Now Deladrix already pretty much breaks through any type of Lumion that you can really try and run with Plasmoth. And as for Chironix completely walls Plasmoth. Billowforge and Soul Burst Krakaloa completely dumpster on Plasmoth, so that's also funny. And then as for the cores and teammates, now admittedly there's not a lot of great teammates for Plasmoth, specifically because while there is some obvious ones, there aren't a lot of great ones that I'd say, because Thunderstorm isn't the best weather. However, using weather counter leads is probably your best option for Thunderstorm teams, because Thunderstorm is so bad, you have to try and counter other weathers that are trying to set up on you. Now, Shachi and Odayaga and Akalos, they're all here because they can help stop the Soul Burst Krakaloas and Billowforges that can try and kill you. Akalos more specifically because it can absorb Raging Flames and burns from both of them, and then Shachi and Odayaga can break through them. Odayaga has a little bit better time than Shachi because Shachi's Foul Chant is resisted by Lava Fiend's Spirit type. Other than this, Valkyrie is also another good one because it completely walls Chironix. You can also use other plant types to try and predict the Chironix lead so they don't get a fog up. And also, Dokomori is also another great option, as Dokomori here can help really, it's only really helpful for Deladrix. Other than that, it doesn't really solve any of the other weather counter leads because they either break through it or they completely wall it or cripple it. So now onto some offensive cores. I found out that Stratosaur is a solid teammate. It's a really good teammate for on Thunderstorm, because Soul Burst Stratosaur has pretty good matchups against Earth types such as Dokomori and Tyrex. Dokomori being a pretty common teammate on weather teams, specifically heavy rainfall, so it can abuse that. It also has the ability to just swap in on a lot of the coverage that opposing Lumions trying to counter Thunderstorm can also do. And then Metatoad here, of course, is going to be abusing the Thunderstorm weather, while Akalos here is mainly going to help out matchups, specifically the Soul Burst Krakaloa matchups that Metatoad doesn't want to take up against. Akalos also works pretty well in facing off against some other weather setters like Chironix. It also does pretty well against Gargolem defense, which Metatoad does get answered by, and as well as Soul Burst Gasstroke in that kind of way. So Akalos, Aqua Body, or Aggressive, it's pretty solid. Other than this, I would also use another version of this core. It's a bit more meta, but I don't really care. I'd use the other one anyway. Jalusa is for the other weather setters. Barbadger as a boots or a non-boots is so solid. And Zulong to take advantage of Thunderstorm as the cleaner is also good. And I did forget to mention that Stratosaur or Zulong can be replaced by Hunder, because Hunder is an electric type that can take advantage of Thunderstorm. Other than this, here's a defensive core that I'd say, in my opinion, Thunderstorms are best fit for offensive type teams because there's not a lot of great defensive teammates that you can really run with Plasmoth. So I'd just go out full offense, run a pivot core, run Seer Knight for barbs. I'd just go all out for Thunderstorm. So in my opinion, Thunderstorm is gotta be probably it's probably the worst weather other than Strong Gusts, but the Strong Gusts and Thunderstorm are honestly not that great at the moment. However, let me know what you think on Plasmoth. Do you think it will be a solid Lumion outside of Thunderstorm, or do you think it's just bad and it will never serve a great purpose again because everyone is using Heavy Rainfall? Like the video and subscribe if you want to see more. This is Cotton Soup signing off to remind you that Zulong is still a dumpster fire.